Okay, Doc, what do we got going today?
Well, Andrew, here's what we got going on. I did not come from the future, but we have some crazy experimental beers to try today.
Yeah, we've done autumn spiced beers with no pumpkin. We've done pumpkin ciders. We've done all kinds of pumpkin craziness. So we're doing some experimental pumpkin autumn kind of. We're still in the series on pumpkin kind of autumn beers.
Yes.
How's this one? How is this different from what we've been doing?
Yes, this one's different. As you said, we have done pumpkin in non-beer beverages like seltzers and ciders. We have done beers that are in the autumn category that don't have any pumpkin in it at all. But today's episode is all about some beers that are still pumpkin beers, but they're really off the beaten path.
Okay.
We have a pumpkin lager. And in the BJCP guidelines, as well as most people I've ever talked to, myself included, really think of pumpkin beers as being ales. You know, they have that, amber ale quality to them. Not really that delicate, aspects that a lager might have.
Interesting.
Excited to try that pumpkin lager. And then another one is, okay, check this out. How about a spicy pumpkin IPA?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
All right.
So
that's an interesting one.
Yeah.
You don't get a lot of those.
No, very, very different. Still a pumpkin beer, but just really, really different. And I love experimentation. I like to experiment sometimes when I brew as well. And following the scientific method, you know that for every good scientific experiment, you have to have a control. So I'd like to start out by having a classic pumpkin beer by which we can see how different these beers have deviated from kind of the norm.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
The Schlafly Pumpkin Ale is actually defined as the BJCP as one of like the classic examples of a pumpkin beer style. Mm-hmm. So I thought we could have that go real classic before we go to the really lighter side of things with pumpkin lager, and then the heavy, spicy pumpkin IPA and get real strange.
Wild.
Yeah.
Well, I think I'm gonna need a pair of these if we're gonna experiment with beers.
Yes. Let's get the examination going.
I am ready for beer. The wrong one first. All right, so we've got our pump control here.
Oh, very good. Yes.
Wow, this is very, very dark orangey. It's actually pretty clear, all things considered.
Yeah, I would say that's very, very, very clear. Brilliantly clear.
Head didn't stick around too long. Try not to get the scent of this glove. It's pumpkin spicy for sure.
Yeah, and I'm getting some of those definitely like pastry-like qualities, where it could almost be like a pumpkin tart or almost like an apple pie crust.
And I was gonna say like it's pumpkin spicy, but not like in other pumpkin spice beers that we've had before. It's got a different quality to it. And I think that is that kind of a pastry that you're talking about.
Yeah.
It smells really nice.
It does. It really smells like an apple turnover or like some kind of a pumpkin pastry. Not necessarily a pumpkin pie, but it has some of that sweet like pie crust elements to it to go along with those spices.
Yeah, pumpkin turnover is, I think, a pretty good description. Almost like pumpkin apple turnover.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
it's pretty nice. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what, that sort of pie crust malt flavor or aroma really carries in through the flavor as well.
Yeah.
It's not an ale that has pumpkin spices in it. It really is kind of a complete. It's very harmonious between the malt that offers that pastry-like quality and the spices, which are not overdone.
No, not at all. It's really crisp. I'm getting a lot of crispness to it, and I don't know if it has anything to do with the clarity of it, but I almost feel like a correlation between the crispness and the clarity, if that makes any sense whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a murky beer. There's not yeast floating around in there, which can definitely help it be crisp.
Sure.
You know, it's just a very cleanly brewed beer, and you can tell that.
Yeah, yeah, that's really nice.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think tasting this beer, it's easy to see why the BJCP selected to name Schlafly as one of the commercial examples of style to sample when you're trying to figure out what a really good example of a pumpkin beer should taste like.
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree. This is super nice, and Schlafly's not a terribly old brewery. Am I correct?
I don't know too much about Schlafly. I know they are from St. Louis, and they've been around a little while.
Okay.
They're not, they haven't been around since like the turn of the century or anything like that.
Right. Yeah, but yeah, and I mean it's kind of an honor to be named as an archetype of the style, so to speak.
Absolutely, it is. Yeah, and you have to produce a great beer. Basically, the beers that are listed in the BJCP guidelines as the commercial examples of the style, those are the ones that set the bar, not for others to try to, beat, but really for other beers to achieve that level of what that style should be.
That makes sense.
So, the Schlafly Pumpkin Ale, pretty straightforward, no gimmicky name or anything like that, but I would say I can see why it's considered a classic. And if you're seeking out kind of what makes a good pumpkin beer, this is a great beer.
Yeah, I like this a lot.
Yeah, really like the pastry quality to it.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what sets it apart from like the other pumpkin beers that we've tried, is that it's got a different quality to the grains, I would say, probably.
Yeah, I just how well the special flavors work and are intertwined with the base beer.
Yeah.
And you take the pumpkin flavors away, and you still, I think, probably have a pretty decent base beer here.
Sure.
And you have that crispness, you have the clarity.
Yeah.
Nice looking color. I think that this beer is absolutely better for the spices that are in there, and it completes that pastry kind of flavor that it's going for.
Yeah.
But you take the pumpkin away, this is still going to be a good beer, and I think that is really one of the ways that you can tell a good specialty category beer from an average one is you take what makes that beer the specialty category away. If the base beer is still pretty good, you're onto something.
Yeah. No, this is a fine drinkable ale, I think, on its own.
Yeah.
I'm really pleased with the crispness of this. It's really it's refreshing both in beer quality, but really refreshing just to drink a pumpkin beer that isn't like, sometimes they can get, I think, bogged down with the spiciness, like the pumpkin spice of it.
Yep.
And that's kind of all that there is, and it's just really, I don't want to say oppressive, but it's definitely a little bit domineering.
Yeah.
This is nice, and it's just really, really crisp.
Yeah.
Which I really appreciate.
Well, now that we know what a really good pumpkin beer tastes like, now we can start our experiment, right?
Yeah.
So we've spent a little time with our control here. Would you like to go with the spicy IPA or the lager first?
Let's go with the lager. I feel like it's a climb. So we start at base, and then we go to something that's a little bit makes sense. I'd believe a pumpkin lager, sure, and then pumpkin IPA should just be off the wall, I think.
Yeah, I think that's really wise. Position in flight is sometimes really important when you're organizing a tasting or thinking about what beer to have next or in what order. And something heavy, like we assume a spicy pumpkin IPA, will probably kind of overshadow what I expect to be more delicate flavors in a pumpkin lager.
I think so.
Some people like to go lighter strength to heavier strength, lighter color to darker color. Those are all nice ways to organize a flight. But also think about the descriptors of the beer too. You might want to go with softer flavored beer and then earlier, and then end with the more intense beers.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
All right, so pumpkin lager it is.
Yeah.
All right, so we have Lakefront Brewery's pumpkin lager.
Yeah. It's another clear one.
It is very clear. I thought at first it was cloudy, but I think that's just because my glass is fogging up a little bit.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, looking at yours, it is very, very clear.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but one of the lenses is broken.
Oh, that's true. You know, it could be... Gosh, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
It could be these glasses of mine, which are really foggy.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think it's just, I think an experiment gone wrong.
That's right, yeah.
This one's pretty pumpkin-y, too. But I'm also getting like a...
So the aroma is much lower than some of the pumpkin ales that we've had. I would say that it has a very light aroma all around.
Yeah.
There's no esters or anything like that, so it's a very cleanly brewed lager. And even if it doesn't overtly come across in ales, we've talked a little bit about the difference between lagers and ales, but lagers a lot of times will have a very, very neutral palate. They don't throw off any real aromatics or flavors or anything like that. And I'm definitely finding this to be much more delicate than some pumpkin ales.
Sure. Yeah, in terms of color, it's way darker than my gloves.
Yeah. Well, and it's way oranger than my gloves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, very true. And my gloves are like circus peanuts. These are kind of like, pumpkin beer colored.
Yeah. No, I think it's a really, really nice color for pumpkin beer. I would maybe expect a pumpkin lager to be a little bit lighter. Although there are dark lagers out there. Some people think that only, lagers are only like the U.S. macro lagers, but there are definitely dark lagers. There's Schwarz beers. Some Bock beers are lagers.
Makes sense to me.
So lagers can come in a wide range of colors, just like ales can.
Yeah.
Marketed at the store, I might expect this to be a little bit lighter in color, but this has that real nice. I would even call this like caramel colored.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair for sure. I'm getting a lot of scent of like rubber glove in this.
Yes. Yeah. So normally a rubber glove would
like
indicate.
An off flavor, right?
That's right. It might indicate chlorophenolic, which is
that's not good.
That is not good. No. Yeah, these gloves do smell a little rubbery, latexy. So no, I'm sure Lakefront did not put any rubber in their beer. That is just
Please do not put rubber in your beer.
Yeah. But that also then, if you're getting the aroma of the material of your glove as strongly as the aroma in the beer, that shows you how delicate the aroma really is. Yeah. It's not kick you in the face with cinnamon and nutmeg, beer. This is a delicately spiced, more nuanced pumpkin beer.
I think I'm getting that scent of what you call toast or like toasted bread.
Yeah, it has.
I think I'm getting that.
Yeah, it has some of that bready maltiness underneath, and again, it's all very, very delicate.
Yeah.
I would say it's a pretty smooth beer.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's no heat to it. One way that judges describe beer is whether it's creamy or whether it's astringent. And astringent can have like a harsh, almost like a bitterness or like think of like tea leaves. How it has that kind of like harsh kind of bitter. That's like an astringency. Okay. Or creaminess, and I'm a little surprised that despite it being a lager, I would say it has a moderate creaminess.
I was going to say, it's probably on the creamier side of the spectrum.
Definitely, and sometimes you can get creaminess. Sometimes like a lower carbonation can accentuate the creaminess, and as we can see, that head really didn't last long at all. So it's probably a little undercarbed, but that almost makes it a little creamy.
Yeah. Yeah, not unpleasant at all.
Mm-mm. No, I don't feel like it's a flat beer. You know, you swirl it around and those bubbles do come back, but it's probably definitely on the lighter side of carbonation. I'm getting some fresh pumpkin type flavor in there too. It's not just pumpkin spice.
No, I agree. The mouthfeel is it's I don't want to say watery like a bad thing. You know, it's definitely it's not a thick beer. I mean, there is that mild creaminess, but it's more, I think, on the watery side. If that makes any sense.
That's right. So in kind of the beer judging world, we would describe that as a light-bodied beer. You can go from like very light, watery is an acceptable descriptor. Very light-bodied, moderate, medium-bodied, up to like a full or almost chewy mouthfeel.
Okay.
And this is definitely, that was very good picking that up. I would say this is, despite being creamy, it is light-bodied. We'll make a beer judge of you yet.
I guess so.
You are picking up on some of these things, yeah.
It's funny how when you do things repeatedly, you typically get better at them.
Yeah. So maybe it was a little bit misleading that I had the pumpkin lager in the experimental series.
Sure, but it's experiments don't have to be crazy.
That's exactly my point. Yeah, and really, even in the BJCP guidelines, they list for all the examples of pumpkin beers, they're all ales.
Yeah.
So I think that you can be experimental by being more nuanced or just taking a totally different, unexpected base beer style. And that doesn't mean you have to take it to new heights and new extremes. You can push boundaries in different ways, which is why I wanted to feature the lager on this episode.
Yeah.
But now we have a beer that really absolutely does push the extremes. And it is New Belgium's Voodoo Ranger, their Atomic Pumpkin. Now, Voodoo Ranger is the New Belgium's IPA series, and sometimes they get a little experimental with it. An Atomic Pumpkin is a pumpkin beer. They're not calling it IPA, but Voodoo Ranger is an IPA series, so I don't know if it's an IPA or not. But it is brewed with pumpkin and chili peppers.
Ooh.
So, the savory and kind of sweet with pumpkin might go well with the chilies.
We'll see. The last chili pepper beer that I had was like 7 or 8 years ago, and it was not good.
Okay.
It's possible that I just aged it for too long, but yeah, it was weird. I can't remember what it was, but it was weird.
I've had very few chili pepper beers. Actually, the best variant Dark Lord that I ever had was the chili pepper.
That's
variant.
interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
In my opinion, anyway.
Sure.
I didn't expect it to be very good, so I sampled it. I was going to throw it into some chili for the Homebrew Club's chili cook-off.
Right, sure.
And I was like, well, I'm not going to just open a variant Dark Lord and not sample it. I ended up sampling most of the bottle because it was so good.
Huh.
But I still put enough of it in the chili
good.
to meet the requirements.
Huh. Well, let's dive into Voodoo Ranger's Atomic Pumpkin.
Yeah, let's check it out.
All right, it's alive.
It is, yes. Another really pretty clear beer.
Mm-hmm. I'm getting the pumpkin pie sweetness is what I'm getting in the nose. A lot of pumpkin pie sweetness.
Yeah, it almost smells like a pumpkin candy or something.
Yeah, like pumpkin sugar.
It does. Sure. Yeah. There's a sugary aspect of the aroma. It's interesting.
I'm wondering if that's going to transfer over into the taste a lot.
I'm getting almost like a cinnamon. You know what it is? It's like a cinnamon candy aroma to it.
Yeah, and you said this had chilies.
It does. Yeah. All right.
Well, we'll take a sip of that really quick, and we'll kind of compare notes.
Yeah.
Because I got some opinions.
Okay, what do you think?
I don't think it's. I mean, I know Voodoo Ranger's kind of in the IPA zone. I wouldn't say this is an IPA almost by any metric, really.
Yeah, it's not.
There's no real hoppiness to it.
It's not hoppy in either bitterness, flavor, or aroma.
Not at all.
So Part of that experimental series.
Yeah.
You know, to be fair, even though the Voodoo Ranger is an IPA series, it does not say anywhere on the can that it's an IPA.
No, that is true. That's
so, yeah, I thought maybe it was, but...
it is not.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's
a lot of spice to it.
And
I mean like heat spice.
It's a spice,
hot.
and it's all in the aftertaste.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you taste it, and you get like...
You let it sit for 6 seconds.
Yeah, and it's like... it's been a long, long time since I've had like an atomic warhead or anything like that.
Yeah.
You know, those spicy cinnamon candies. But from what I remember, those candies, it tastes kind of like that in the aftertaste.
Yeah.
Where it's hot, but then it's like that spicy, sweet...
It's like a candy hot.
Like, yeah, cinnamon candy with some pumpkin in there then, too.
Sure. Yeah. I feel it on the back of my tongue and in kind of the opening of my throat the most. The spiciness.
And it's all really in the mouthfeel. It's not in flavor. It doesn't taste like a chili beer. It really tastes... I get that like cinnamon candy with pumpkin spice in the flavor, but it's all in the aftertaste and the mouthfeel. And you're absolutely right. It kind of opens up your throat, opens up your sinuses a little bit.
Pumpkin, cinnamon, and chilies.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't really say a whole lot. It does actually. It's got spicy or special release crossed out and says spicy release.
Oh, okay.
So that's interesting. But yeah, it really doesn't go into a whole lot of depth about it on the actual can itself. But
and you know, for as big of a brewery as New Belgium is now, I'm really surprised they put out such an experimental, wild beer like this.
Yeah.
You know, this is something that you might, you know, go to the local, you know, kooky brew pub around the corner, and you know, they get their assistant brewer that's, you know, 20 years old, you know, throwing some weird stuff around and, you know, come up with something like this. But yeah, New Belgium, kudos for the experimental nature of this beer.
I would say it's a successful experiment.
Yeah, completely different than any kind of pumpkin beer I've ever
had.
Not
unpleasant at all.
No.
Very nice.
Yeah, if you are tired of kind of the run-of-the-mill pumpkin beers, or you just see, you know, amber pumpkin ale, amber pumpkin ale, amber pumpkin ale, amber pumpkin ale, and you've had them and you want to try something a little different, I think this Atomic Pumpkin is kind of it. Like that, you know, you get some pumpkin, but this is something that it's like, this is different.
This is some weird pumpkin science.
Yes, this is some weird pumpkin science. But that's what this episode is all about, right? It's about experimentation.
Yeah.
And in homebrew competitions, you know, you have a lot of range to experiment in the autumn spice category. And if you get really crazy, you can just go put a beer into a specialty category if it doesn't really fit any mold.
Yeah.
And, you know, you could have just the most extreme range of beers, and sometimes it's not about... you do have to stand out, and sometimes you have to have bold flavors in order to win competitions like that.
Yeah.
And, you know, this is a beer that I could see in an experimental category.
Yeah. Doing really well.
Doing very, very well, because it's not like... It's not unpleasantly hot. The heat is right in where I think most people can drink it and enjoy it, but everybody can still perceive that it's there.
Yeah.
And it's well in balance with all the other flavors.
Yeah, I'll say. You know what I will say, we touched briefly on it in this episode, we've touched on it in other episodes, the importance of placement and flight. And boy, am I glad we chose this one last, because this would have been really weird to go from this to the pumpkin lager.
Yeah, I don't think it would
have worked.
No, and I think if we had the flight rearranged and we would have done this before the pumpkin lager, we would have needed to like hit pause, take a break, have some pretzels or something, and just try to do a palate cleanser, because this absolutely would overtake the nuances of that lager.
This is a very bold beer.
Yeah, it is.
Extremely bold beer.
Yeah.
So, good. I mean, good job, really.
Yeah.
Excellent job.
So I even feel weird, like I don't think in this episode it's almost appropriate to award like a best in flight, because these were all, we had two experimental beers, but on totally opposite ends of the experimental spectrum.
Yeah.
And then we had the, the beer that,
the archetypal.
All other pumpkin beers are judged against, right? So, but, as, from a more consumer-esque side of it, not a BJCP beer judge side, of the three, what do you think you'd order again?
Man, this one was just such and I think it is kind of designed to be. It's a standout.
Yeah.
I would definitely order the Schlafly again. I would probably even order this one more time. And then I would definitely have or think about having more of the pumpkin lager.
Yeah.
For sure. They're all good beers, I think, in my opinion, to have more than one of.
Yeah, they're really hard to judge against each other, and
yeah, it's almost not fair to judge them against each other. There's such.
To me, like, I think if we have all three, but this is the one that I'm going to remember, and this is the one that I'm probably going to tell my friends about. Have you tried this? The other two were good.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, cool. But this one is so unique and bold that this one I might tell people about and say, hey, you should try that.
Atomic Pumpkin.
Yeah,
it's out there.
Right.
Yeah. This is definitely by far the most memorable.
Yeah.
Of them. I'll remember that the Schlafly is kind of the metric. I'll remember maybe that the I can't even remember that brewery, unfortunately.
It was Lakefront.
Lakefront.
Yeah.
I'll remember that it's a good beer. This is like, have you? It's really kind of off the wall.
Yeah.
In a good way.
Yeah. Everything really worked in this episode.
Yeah.
They were so different from each other.
Yeah.
You had the classic, you had the lager taking things on a much lighter, more nuanced approach, and this Voodoo Ranger that stand out. I think we both will remember the Voodoo Ranger for a long time to come. So I might say that just, for the most, the best experimental beer, I would have to say Voodoo Ranger
hands
is
down.
probably the best. Yeah,
definitely hands down.
So I hope this gives you some guidance on what type of experimental beers are out there and how breweries are experimenting with pumpkin beers. And I'd love to hear about other types of experimental beers that are out there. So maybe let us know some really cool pumpkin drinks that you've had in the comments, or hit us up and let us know what you've tried that's really off the wall and out there.
And if pumpkin experimentation isn't your thing, we have a whole series on autumn spice beers, pumpkins, Marzens, fest beers. We've got a big autumnal playlist.
That's right. We actually have so much content we can't even fit it into one playlist. We have a whole playlist of fall beers, like Oktoberfest beers, and then a whole other one for pumpkin beers.
Yeah.
So we have just so much fall beer content and lots more pumpkin. If pumpkins aren't really your thing, you want to do more classic, you can hop over to the Oktoberfest side on the playlist as well. So lots of content out there this fall, and thanks for watching. In a glass.
Coming 2021.
That's right.
Or shit, that dates this episode.